Welcome to part 7 of how to play the horn. We're going to start off on page 46 and 47, talking about how the fingering chart works and how you know how to play the notes. So turn to that page. So on page 46, you'll see this little diagram here of a horn, and you'll see that it shows you a 1, 2, and 3 referring to your first valve, second valve, and third valve. And then also sometimes there's a thumb valve, like on mine, which is a double horn. If it's a single horn, it won't have that. So the first notes we learn on the horn are A, B flat, and C. Okay, and so this is the fingering chart. This is page 47, and on the A it tells you the name of the note, which is A, shows you where it's at on the staff, which is the second space, and then it shows you a fingering. Now you'll notice on your fingering it has a 1 and a 2. That means that you push valve 1 and 2 at the same time. And then underneath that in parentheses, it has a T 1, 2, and that means trigger 1, 2, or thumb valve 1, 2. Sometimes we call it a trigger, sometimes we call it a thumb valve. And so that's if you have a double horn. Sometimes you'll use that. For my horn students, I teach that this note, this G sharp, A flat note, we'll start with the double horn. So you'll use the trigger valves on these notes. And then every note below the G sharp, which would be up there and over there, we would use just with the F side. So if you have a double horn, we'll cover that more in class and help you understand. So trigger on the G sharp and higher, and no trigger on the lower one. So triggers the ones with the parentheses. You should note that there are times in this particular fingering chart where I don't agree with the fingerings, and I will tell you what fingerings to use for those times. But this first notes, those are the ones we use. The other thing you need to know is that in your book you have a regular page, which is playing the same notes as everybody in the band, and then you have an optional page, and that's playing a lower note that still sounds good with the band, but it's not the same exact note. If you can play the regular notes, then I encourage you to do that. If you can't quite play those notes because they're higher, then you can play the optional notes, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, so we're on page 6, and at the top of the page it shows you those notes. Notice we're on not the optional page, we're on the regular page. And in the top left-hand corner, it shows you the A and the B flat and the C. So if you're on a single horn, you're going to play just the notes. And in this case, it actually is the same fingerings. It's just that the double horn, you're using a trigger. Single horn, you don't have a trigger to use. So it's 1 and 2 for the A, and it sounds like this. Okay, that's the A, and it's a little bit higher than some of the other brass players for you. Okay, and that's okay. We'll talk more about that. The next note is the B flat. Now the flat sign just means that it's lowered a half step. For you, just know B flat is first valve. For double horns, trigger first valve. And then the C is open. Open meaning no valves. Whenever we say open or no valves. But for the double horns, the trigger. Okay? So you have A, B flat, and C. Okay? And those are your first 3 notes. Now, the optional page first 3 notes are lower than that. They are your E, F, and G. Okay? And they're played open, first valve, and open with no trigger. Or single horn, no trigger. Right? You don't have it. So, you notice they're different notes than the others. For the rest of this video, I'm just going to refer to the regular page. And if you're struggling getting those notes, talk to me. We'll work on it in class. And if you feel like you're hitting the optional notes, go ahead and do that with me. It's going to be what's called a harmony, meaning you're playing a note that's not exactly the same. But that's okay. We'll work on it some more. So from this point on, I'm just going to play the regular notes. And if you can do that with me, then great. Okay? So also top of the page 6, you have that blue box that's talking about that whole note. Whole note gets 4 counts in 4/4 time. So if this is the beat, you're gonna play like this. Ta. Okay, four whole counts of 4 of those beats you're gonna use. And it also talks about a whole rest, which means a note plays 4 counts of sound. A rest is gonna play 4 counts of silence. Okay, so you're gonna count in your head also 1, 2, 3, 4. You're just not gonna play sound during that time. So on exercise number 1, we have that first note, that A, and we do that. We play a whole note, then a whole rest, then a whole note, and so forth. So as you play, you want to face your music, face your book, and look at your note as you play it. Okay? Don't write in the names, just memorize it. Right now there's one note. Memorize the name of the note, where it's at on the staff, and what fingerings to push. Okay? Let's try number 1. Here we go. Go ahead and find that note. It's a little harder. Kind of. If you start a little lower, just tighten your lips. Until it hits the right note. Okay? If you start a little higher, just loosen your lips until it gets down to the right note. Okay? So find that A, and let's play exercise number 1. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the end because there's a double bar right there. Okay? All right, exercise number 2 is going to that next new note, that B flat. Okay? And it sounds like this. So let's try exercise number 2. Same thing, there's whole notes and whole rests. There are a different number of them in this one, so you got to follow your music. Don't just guess. 1, 2, exercise 2, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the end. Now you notice a couple things. I'm still going at the beginning of each note, right? So I'm still doing, not just going, right? Not just blowing it. I'm at the beginning of each note. Secondly, I didn't let go of my valve in between the notes. The whole time I just kept my first finger and my thumb down the whole time. Okay? So the whole time I just played, and in between I just kept my fingers there. Okay? We don't push it at the same time you play. It actually makes it a little harder to play. So go ahead and get it set first. Push first. Get your mouth set. Bring it to the size of your mouth. And play. Now sometimes I'm taking mine off to talk, to count. Normally I wouldn't do that, but in order to talk, it'd get a little confusing if I was talking with it in front of my face all the time. So normally I'm just going to count in my head. Number 3 says lines and spaces. It has both the first note and the second note. So you only have to remember 2 things right now, right? And let's play number 3. It starts with the A. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, go to the B flat, switch your finger. 1, 2, keep it the same. 1, 2, switch your fingers back, and okay, so that's number 3. Number 4, we have another new note. We've already talked about it. It's the C. So it's just open, meaning no buttons, or trigger if you're playing a double horn. And it's pretty high for beginners, and it gets kind of hard to get up there. Again, if you're struggling, you might be playing the open G. That's a little bit lower. Sounds like. Okay, down there. Or you're playing the C. Try to play the C if you can. Here we go, number 4. 1, 2, Oh, sorry, I forgot. Number 4, it says watch those rests. So you really got to watch your notes and rests and know what you're playing. So here we go. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, here we go. Notice we had 2 rests in a row on that one. So you're following the music, you got it. Again, don't write in the note names or the fingerings. Just memorize it. It'll make it a lot easier. Once we know 40 notes or whatever, if you have to write it in order to play it, that's a lot of notes to write in on a piece of music. All right? So just memorize it as you go and you'll be fine. Okay? Number 5 has all 3 of those notes. It just goes one note, then the next note, next note. Make sure you get your fingers ready for the note. You play it, in the rest, switch to the next fingers. Here we go, number 5. 1, 2, starts on the A, get your fingers ready. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you're thinking those counts in your head as you play the note and as you rest. Okay? Number 6 has 2 notes, one right after the other. Okay? Now that might be a little confusing, but just know we've already done it. We practiced doing this. Right? Same thing. This time we just hold it longer before we do it again. Just like that hose of water flowing out in the summertime, and you take your hand and you psh, 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 right? The air is the water, your tongue is the hand. Okay, so in this case we're just going to hold it for 4 counts. Before you redo it, before you interrupt that air, okay? So it's just the first 2 measures, number 6 would sound like this. Okay, I didn't stop my air, I just interrupted it so I could play the next note. So let's play number 6. Here we go. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the end. So that's kind of how that works. Review this video. Go through these exercises until you have it down. Practice them. Remember in our practice tips, practice things you're not doing well. So if you're struggling with any of those things, practice it some more. And of course, as always, comment or email or ask me in class if you have questions. So catch me on the next video, our last one in this series, and we'll learn more about how to play the horn.